Mike Sullivan, coach of the Penguins. Hard to believe they get their season started Thursday night at
Bring it
home
on. Bring it on.
against Arizona. I think we all feel bring it on. Mike, how are you this morning? Appreciate you taking time.
I'm great, Ron. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's great that you're with us. And first of all, congratulations. In the offseason, you did a new contract extension with the Penguins. Going to be here for quite a while. I thought it was a terrific signing on the Penguins' part. I think you're probably even happier about it than I was.
Well, I sure am, Ron. Thanks. I really appreciate your kind words. Pittsburgh means an awful lot to me and my family, and I'm grateful that our ownership group and Hexie and Berkey have shown the faith and trust in me that I can continue to lead this team as the head coach, and I'm really looking forward to the challenges ahead.
This is a big day for you, Mike. You get to talk not just to me, but you also get Bob Pompiani in here. Bob, say hello to Mike Sullivan.
It's always my pleasure to talk to one of the best in the business, Mike, and thanks for taking the time. Do appreciate it.
Sure, it's my pleasure, Bob.
So let me ask you about this team because I think it's fascinating that a lot of people argue back and forth about when windows of opportunities open, close, how long they're open. This team is still a team that has some of the best players in it. You guys have added a lot to your roster and make it very difficult to to open up opportunities for maybe younger kids, although you have some knocking at the door. So how good do you feel about this team coming in? I know it's older, but it has a lot of experience. How valuable is that in your division and your conference?
Well, I think it's really valuable. And, I've said on a number of occasions that I know our team is a little bit older, but we're not old. And I think there's an important distinction there. And our guys have shown consistently that they can continue to play at an elite level. You can look at this past season, for the latest evidence of that. And we believe these guys are still competitive and have the opportunity to try to contend. And we all recognize how difficult it is to win. It's arguably the hardest trophy in sports to win, and we recognize that there are a lot of good teams out there. And but I believe that this group has what it takes, and our core group of players here that have that as you guys know have been so accomplished to this point and have built such an impressive legacy already. They're hungry for more. And these guys, I think, are capable of doing great things. We understand we got to go out and earn it every day, and that's what we're going to start to do here coming up this week. But we're excited about the challenges in front of us, and I'm excited to compete with these guys.
Mike, you said all those things in the off season. Now that you've had a chance to see the Crosby, Letang, and Malkin, you feel even better about them after you see them go through a training camp and. The speed and everything else. And I'm especially interested in Malkin because he's the oldest one of the group.
I do, Ron. We put together a fairly rigorous training camp, and when we're watching our group go, our top players are leading the charge from a fitness level standpoint, and I think that speaks volumes for their commitment to excellence and their work habits off the ice and how hard they train in the off season. These guys, they're just so driven and they show it every single year. And so after going through a fairly rigorous training camp with these guys and watching their fitness level with respect to all the other guys in the training camp, the younger guys included, some of our most fit guys are the guys that we're talking about, Crosby, Malkin, and Letang. So I feel good about this group. I really am excited to start to compete with them this week. I just believe in them.
Mike, I'm interested in Malkin because everybody talks about Sid's drive and Letang's drive, and Malkin's game seemed to slip a little bit 5-on-5 last year. I know he was coming off the knee surgery, yet I know how competitive a guy he is. I got to figure he is really driven this year.
Yeah, I think he is. He's come into camp in the best shape, and certainly in my tenure here, coming back in the off season. He's a guy, Ron, that I think continues to have the ability to be a game breaker. And you look at his numbers last year after coming off a difficult knee surgery. You know, he scores 20 goals in 40 games. He's a point-a-game guy. I don't care how old you are. That's not easy to do. And Gino was able to accomplish that. And I believe we've had the ability this year to surround him with a little bit more, you know, from a supporting cast standpoint, that will give him an opportunity, I think, 5-on-5, you know, to be at his very best. And, you know, we didn't acquire Ricard Raquel, for example, until late in the season. And then, unfortunately, he got hurt early on in the playoffs. And we all think Rax is a really good player for us. And so now we've got a guy that we can play in our top six that give us the ability to play with either Sid or Gino, and we can move Rusty around depending on which direction we choose to go. And we have the ability, I think, to surround both Sid and Gino with I think what they need to set them up for success. So I'm looking forward to watching Gino this year. I think he's got a certain look in his eye that he wants to prove people wrong.
We're talking to Penguins coach Mike Sullivan here on the Cook and Joe Show. The Penguins open up the 22-23 season Thursday night at home against Arizona.
You're going to have a lot of home games right off the bat, which is good, especially since you haven't played a game in a while. Mike, I want to ask you about your defense. It is, once again, a very deep defense. You've brought in a couple of experienced guys. Jeff Petrie, still at his age, can produce. You had him, I noticed, with P.O. Joseph the other night. And I'm just curious your thought on P.O. Joseph, because you had pushes from Ty Smith. You know, Chad Ruido's been around for a long time. It's pretty crowded. What did you learn from P.O. Joseph while playing with Petrie?
Well, I thought it was P.O.'s very best game in the exhibition season. You know, and it's a good question, Bob, because one of the things we tried to do was to try to put some of these young players with our veteran guys to give them a chance to be at their best and set them up for success. And our thought going into that last exhibition game was to do that very thing with both P.O. and Ty Smith. You know, these are real difficult decisions. We feel like we have 9 NHL defensemen that can all play games for us, but unfortunately we can't keep 9 on our roster, and we're trying to understand what we have in some of our young players, players like P.O. and Ty Smith. We feel like we know what we have in other players like Chad Ruido and Marcus Pettersson and players of that nature, but this is a competitive roster. And it's also an evolving roster. And so we're trying to do our best to make the best decisions for the team here. But I tell you, we are excited about the fact that we're as deep as we are with what we feel are 9 defensemen that we know can play in this league and are bona fide NHL defensemen.
Mike, one of the goals was to get a little bigger, a little stronger, and Petrie and Ruda both fit that bill, don't they?
Yeah, they really do. You know, I think when we went into this off season, you know, our coaching staff sat with Hexie and Berkey and we talked a little bit about our team and how we felt we wanted to try to improve and get better. And one of the areas that we discussed was with our defense core was just trying to create a little bit more diversity amongst the group. And what I mean by that is different players bringing different competencies to the table. So, for example, we got a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger. That was something that we talked about. We didn't compromise our puck moving ability, our transition ability, our speed ability through that process. But we got a player in Jeff Petrie that we think is a legitimate, you know, top 2 defenseman that can play on a power play, but also is a very good penalty killer, is going to help us 5-on-5, can drive some offense for us. But makes us harder at our net front and things of that nature. We have a guy in Jan Ruda that is just hard to play against. He's a really good defender, and he's going to help us on our penalty kill. He's going to help us at our net front. So they bring different core competencies to the table that I think make us a better group as a whole. You know, when you looked at our defense core last year, although you know, I give all those guys credit. I thought they played extremely well for us. We had a lot of guys that were similar in the types of games that they played. And I think this group that is together on defense for us now, we've got different types of defensemen that we can deploy in different circumstances that are going to make us a better group as a whole.
We're talking to Penguins coach Mike Sullivan, getting ready for the opening game Thursday night against Arizona. Mike, I know Brian Dumoulin wasn't really pleased with his season last year. Do you look for a bounce back year from him based on what you've seen through training camp?
Yeah, we do. You know, we think so highly of Dumo, and his body of work here in Pittsburgh speaks for itself. And you know, I think Dumo would be the first one to admit that he has higher expectations of himself than his year last year, and we do as well. And we know he's a real good player. He has been a real good player for us for a long time, and we believe he's going to have a great year for us. He's had a real strong training camp to this point. He's trained extremely hard in the off season. And I think he's excited about rebounding and once again, you know, proving some of the doubters wrong out there that might have doubts about Dumo's game. We have the luxury of knowing them as people, not just as hockey players, and you know, and knowing Dumo the way I know him and the character person that he is, you know, he takes an awful lot of pride in his game and what he brings to the table as far as helping this Pittsburgh Penguins team have success. And I know he's driven to want to have a good year, and I'm excited to watch him this year.
Penguins head coach Mike Sullivan, special guest here on the Cook and Joe Show. Mike, I want to talk about Tristan Jarry. He shed some light on what happened last year and how he really kind of laid it on the table to come back for that Game 7, even though he obviously wasn't close to being 100%. What did you learn from him and his willingness to step up in that role, given the how challenged you were in the goaltending, and how much confidence do you have in him moving forward?
Well, I think what we learned is just his drive to win and his commitment to want to help the team, and I think that was on display in the playoffs last year. It wasn't the perfect scenario for us or for him, but you know, Tristan, I think, did an admirable job in trying to bring his very best to help us get over the hump and to beat the Rangers in Game 7. You know, I believe Tristan is a very good goaltender. He is a legitimate number one goaltender in this league. I think he's capable of being one of the very best in this league, and I'm excited to watch his game continue to grow. I think he made big strides last year from a consistency standpoint, and that's something that we try to challenge Tristan with is just knowing the type of goaltending that we're going to get night in and night out, you know, game in and game out. That gives us the trust that we're gonna get his very best each and every night, and I think Tristan made big strides in that regard last year. He had a real solid year for us, and I look forward to him to build on that.
I have one final thing before Ron asks a question. It's about your name, and it's about your namesake over with the Steelers. I spent a lot of time at the training camp, and Mike Sullivan said he's a big fan of Mike Sullivan. Have you met Mike Sullivan, Mike Sullivan?
I have not met Mike Sullivan, but I sure would. It would be an honor to meet him. You know, we have a great relationship with the Steelers and their coaching staff, and I have so much respect for those guys and you know, and what they do and how they prepare. My staff has spent some time with Mike Tomlin's staff in the past, you know, to try to learn from one another, and I've always cherished those opportunities. I have not had the privilege of meeting Mike Sullivan, but I sure would look forward to that opportunity.
Well, you've been here longer, so we refer to you as the Mike Sullivan,
right,
and he's the other Mike Sullivan, just so you know the difference, okay?
Well, I appreciate that, guys.
Before I let you go, Mike, just two more things. You know, Kapanen obviously very much, scrutinized last year, his performance. I don't know that anybody was real pleased with it, yet you guys signed him to a new deal. What did you see from him, and why should we be excited about watching him this year?
Well, we believe in Cappy. We believe he's a real good player, and you know, he showed the ability to be a real effective player in this league. That was one of the reasons why we went out and acquired him when we did, because we felt he was a guy that could play the style of game that we're trying to play here in Pittsburgh. His skill sets are certainly complementary with his speed and his skating ability and his offensive instincts, and we think he's a guy that can be an important part of helping this team have success. And we know that he's capable of more than the season that he had for us last year. We all have to take ownership on that. That's not just on Cappy. That's on me as well as his head coach. I've got to do a better job and pushing the right buttons with Cappy to try to get his very best and putting him in positions where he can be successful. And I'm going to try to do that. And Cappy and I have had a few conversations about that. But the reason that we re-signed him is because we all believe in him, and we know that he can be a very good player in this league. He can be a very good player for us, and I'm excited to watch Cappy here in this early part of the season because I think he's going to be a big part of the solution here.
Mike, before I let you go, last one. I know these last 4 or 5 years haven't ended the way you wanted after winning the 2 cups, but yet 16 years in a row making the playoffs. I'm not sure people realize how hard it is just to get in the playoffs, let alone to win a cup. Would you agree?
Yes, I would. There's so much parity in the league, Ron, in today's game. There's always a handful of teams every year that are really good teams that don't make the playoffs, and that's I think is just the nature of today's NHL. There's such a fine line between winning and losing, and I think the fact that the Penguins organization has continued to make the playoffs year in and year out is a testament to the players that have been here and the drive that they display every single year. We certainly have higher expectations than making the playoffs, as you know, Ron, and we're certainly not satisfied. But I also recognize the challenge that's ahead of every NHL team. There's a lot of really good teams in this league. As I said, there's always 3 or 4 real good teams that don't make the playoffs every single year, and they're asking themselves very difficult questions. I think it's important for us to try to put ourselves in a position to contend for the Stanley Cup, and the only way you can do that is you got to make the playoffs. You got to punch your ticket to the dance, so to speak. And these guys, the players that have been here, they've done it 16 years in a row. And certainly we have high expectations again this year. We believe we have a Stanley Cup contending team. We've got to stay in the moment and make sure that we take care of business, game in and game out to give ourselves an opportunity to compete for the Stanley Cup. And our players recognize that as well. But this is a tough league with a lot of really good teams.
That you have just heard the Mike Sullivan in town. The Mike Sullivan in town. Mike, we appreciate the time. Keep everybody healthy. Nothing matters if you don't keep them healthy. Good luck to you this season. Look forward to seeing you again real soon.
Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Ron. Thanks, Bob. Really appreciate it.
All right.
Have a good year.
That was I love that question you asked him, by the way. It was a great one. Has Mike Sullivan ever met Mike Sullivan? He still hasn't done it yet.